Aquinas Senior Lucy Santangelo to come on up.
Frank Joseph Giblin graduated from Aquinas in 1960. During his time at Aquinas, Frank was a member of the Maroon and White Oratoricals and the German, Latin, Physics, and Chemistry clubs. Frank also kept the scorebook for the basketball teams, then delivered the game stats to the Democrat and Chronicle sports department. Frank attended Assumption University, founded by the Basilian Fathers, and graduated in 1965 with a Bachelor's of Applied Science degree. While at Assumption, Frank was a member of the men's basketball team that won the Canadian National Basketball Championship for the first time in the school's 100-year history. In the summer of 1964, Frank worked as a summer intern for NASA during the Apollo space program. He earned his PhD in biochemistry in 1974 from the State University of New York at Buffalo. Following his PhD, Frank began working as a postdoctoral fellow at the Eye Research Institute at Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan. His role evolved into a faculty position, and he later served as the director of Institute from 2004 to 2021. As a faculty member at Oakland University, Frank received continuous funding from the National Eye Institute of the NIH and other organizations for nearly 40 years, totaling over $12 million. In addition to his research and administrative accomplishments, Frank received numerous awards over the years, including the Frank Giblin Lifetime Achievement Award and Distinguished Professor from Oakland University. Frank shares that Aquinas provided stability in his life, allowing him to focus on coursework and plan for college and his future career. The discipline and dedication to teaching demonstrated by the Basilian Fathers and other faculty members at Aquinas had a significant influence on him. Frank has fond memories of his 4 years at Aquinas. Cherishing the friendships he formed, he deeply appreciates the values instilled in him and the instruction that set him on the path to a fulfilling career. I am proud to present Dr. Frank Giblin, Aquinas Class of 1960, and Aquinas Hall of Fame inductee for distinguished career.
Good morning. 65 years ago, I stood here and gave an oratorical speech to the whole school. I was petrified. Well, first I'd like to say that I, of course, feel very honored to have been inducted into the 2024 Aquinas Hall of Fame. Even my granddaughter is impressed, and it takes a lot to impress her. I don't think, or back in the 1950s, I don't think anyone could have predicted this for me. I was certainly not one of the class standouts, but I did manage to have a lot of fun during my 4 years at Aquinas, and I very much appreciate the time that I was able to spend there. I have no idea who may have nominated me for this honor, but whoever it was, I'm very grateful. I took a look at the names of the previous 200 or so Hall of Fame inductees for the nearly 100-year history of Aquinas. I recognized about 20 of the names, and each one brought back very fond memories from over 65 years ago. It's amazing how fast the years have gone by. The name of Father John Spratt, who was inducted in 1994, brought a smile to my face. Father Spratt was a wonderful gentleman and a very impressive athlete, especially in hockey, as were many of the Basilian Fathers during that time. Father Spratt coached me in basketball in 1957 when I was a freshman and he was a man in his 60s. I can still remember Father Spratt shouting at me, "Don't telegraph your pass," something I've always tried to remember. Although I lived in Rochester for only 5 years, they were all very important, very enjoyable years for me. Rochester was booming in the 1950s when Kodak, of course, was dominating the film and camera industry. In 1956, my sister got a job working as a secretary for a firm called the Haloid Photographic Company, which a year later would transform remarkably into the powerful company known as Xerox. So my sister was doing quite well. As for me, I was making very good money, delivering the Democrat and Chronicle newspaper every morning, 7 days a week for 4 years. I absolutely loved that job, even when one winter we had over 160 inches of snow, and you can look that up. In the summers, I spent a lot of time swimming in Lake Ontario, playing tennis at the Maplewood YMCA, basketball at Edgerton Park, and playing golf at the beautiful Durand Eastman Golf Course. And of course, I remember vividly the annual lilac festivals held at Highland Park. Lilacs were my mother's favorite flower. But the time I spent at Aquinas probably had the greatest impact on me. I had the utmost respect for those who taught me during those years, the priests, sisters, and lay teachers. Their strong dedication to teaching was very apparent to all of us. I remember fondly my English teacher in 1959, Mr. Murphy, who was a great mentor for me in writing. Being able to write clearly would become so important for me later in my career. For example, when I was writing NIH grant applications. I always tried to be as good a mentor for the many students who have worked in my laboratory over the years as Mr. Murphy was for me those many years ago. Other Aquinas memories include the Saturday afternoon football games. I enjoyed the one yesterday. Congratulations on the win. I attended the very first Aquinas-McQuaid basketball game held at the Rochester War Memorial, and the Aquinas mission bouts, the exciting Aquinas mission bouts held each year also at the War Memorial. Boxing was absolutely huge at Aquinas in the 1950s. I was also very fortunate to have had a number of very good friends at Aquinas, including Bill Brown and the late P.J. Casella, who were both basketball stars in the 50s. Another friend was Jim Finucane, who after graduating from Aquinas made the very wise decision to begin working right away for IBM, which was then just getting started in the computer business. Jim would later go on to graduate from Harvard University. A very close friend at that time was the late Michael Abbey. In 1967, my wife Jane and I named our newborn son after Michael. This is possibly one of the very few times in Aquinas history that a former student has named their child after a fellow classmate. And finally, speaking of my wife Jane, who's sitting over there, I also need to thank her for all of her very strong support for me over the past 60-plus years. It's not always easy being married to a researcher who needs to spend so much time working in the laboratory, being away from home. The old saying, publish or perish, is actually quite true. And again, finally, thanks to Aquinas for the very great honor of being inducted into the Hall of Fame. I appreciate it very much.